If everybody else is okay with it. Now we're on air. Okay. All right, looks like we are live. So I will call the October 2nd Environment and Land Use meeting to order at 8:32. Roll call, we'll start with Kevin.
Here.
Tony Munson,
Tony Munson here.
Dave Larson here.
Randy Severson here.
Kellen Nelson here.
Andy Todd here.
Stacy Clyde here.
And then from staff, we have,
Mark Carlson.
Haley Passo.
and we have our surveyor, Joe Nelson, and Dwayne Snowball, of course, in attendance. I certify that open meeting law requirements have been met with proper posting. We have a 12-item agenda. I would entertain a motion to adopt.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Has everyone had a chance to read through the minutes from September? Any corrections or additions?
I move to approve.
Move to approve by Todd,
Second.
second by Kevin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item number 6, we get to learn about our wildlife damage programs and claims with Dwayne. Yes, please.
So can everybody hear me? Yep. Okay, nice to see everybody again on a warm fall day. I sent the handout to Verge. I'm assuming everybody received it? Okay. This is the time of year we kind of go through the stuff to approve certain things for the fall appraisals and stuff. So the first item on the agenda is setting the crop prices. This is exclusive to the wildlife damage abatement claims program for Trempealeau County. Wildlife Services, or I monitor prices throughout the year from October last year to September this year, and come up with averages. So for corn, involved about 120 prices, some from Ag Statistics, one from an ethanol plant, and the rest from cooperatives and feed mills and stuff like that throughout Fort County area. So the low for corn was 324 in August. The high was 480 last October, and that averaged out to be $4 a bushel over the last year. Soybeans, similar minus the ethanol plant. So the low was 907 in August out of Fall Creek, and then the high was 1322 last November out of Cargill and La Crosse. So the average there is 1120. The forage stuff, low was 119 on the straight alfalfa, high was 211. That uses NAS statistics and UW Extension hay market report. For mixed hay, the low was 64 just this August, and then the high was 156 in May. So that averaged, those was 169.58 a ton, and the mixed hay was 121.17 a ton. Relative to last year, corn was at 540. The committee approved. Soybeans was 1326. Alfalfa was 183.56, and mixed hay was a little bit higher at 128.65. Does anybody have any questions on how I arrived at that or anything like that? So if you don't, then we'd need a motion to approve those prices as is.
Okay. Doing,
If I can, I just have a, not, for information.
Yep.
When you use these numbers, highs and lows,
Yep.
do you just take the high and the low and average that? Or do you take a monthly or a weekly, or do you calculate quantities in there at all, or can you?
So what I do is, this is kind of, and it's hard to see, here's a big spreadsheet. So basically, middle of the month, I take it once a month for 12 months, and I've got, like I said, ag statistics, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different feed mills or co-ops, and then an eighth ethanol plant for corn. And so I average that month, each month, those probably 10 prices, and then all the way down through the 12, so there's about 120 prices. Is that what you're asking?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then they're all averaged,
Each month is averaged into a
yeah,
yearly.
yeah, in a yearly average, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Need a motion to approve the prices as presented? I'd say.
I'll make that motion to approve it.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Okay, the second on the agenda, I think we'll end up tabling this because nobody's called yet. It is self-limiting in the sense that there's 4 farmers in Trempealeau County that met all the requirements in the sense that they've signed up in time and stuff, that they're claim eligible. Nobody can newly sign up and be claim eligible. So last year we set, it was set at, I think, December 1st, but I think we came back last year and dealt with it then.
Sure.
And then we'll know
think
how
you're
the
right.
harvest's coming off. I think it's gonna start coming off pretty fast here, but, so we'll just move on and we'll come back in November for that, okay?
Yep, sounds good. So the next item is
The county
budget.
budget, so this is the proposed budget for Trempealeau County. I'm trying to find the one sheet I have here. It's up about 4% from the previous year. Got too many sheets here, so bear with me. So from last year, the budget was total budget was around 38,895. This year, it's the total budget's 40,767.12, but there is a $1,000 increase for deer donation processing because of the number of deer processed, so it's about equal. So county administration's the same, about $500. Office overhead is up, it's basically the same, it's up $75. Abatement materials is down about $500. Salaries and benefits is up about $1,500, and then mileage, that's truck maintenance and gas and stuff like that, is down about $430. Deer donation administration, that's just simply, that number is actually down, but it's split between the number of counties that participate. The administration split equally among the counties that we administer. And then, like I said, the deer donation processing is up about 1,000. The administration and processing of deer donation can only be spent for that. So if they don't donate enough deer, that money goes back into the coffers, okay? Then with working with wildlife services is allocated $3,361.43. That's up about $300. The budget thing where we would have a motion on, if there's no question stuff, would be the 37,405.70, because that's the DNR portion requesting of it. The federal funds is just allocated because we work with Trempealeau County Wildlife Services does. That's set aside funding. So is there any questions on that?
Go ahead.
Again, have these numbers been presented to the administrator as part of a budget already, or nothing has been,
I don't believe that this goes into the county budget per se.
It's how it's handled within the county, I'm not sure, but there's no county funded dollars.
Okay,
It's
okay.
money in and money out. So how, and David, I can't tell you for sure because I work with multiple counties and everybody does a little different. So this stuff was given, presented, and how it moves through the Trempealeau County system, I do not know.
Sure.
So,
Mark, do you have any idea on that? Haley?
So I think we had a general number from last year, and we did probably very similar. With these new updated numbers, I'll definitely get that to the administrator, but that's gonna be like a in and out. So it's really not going to affect the overall county budget. So,
Good.
because it's with the DNR technical, like, kind of, I don't want to say grant, but
Yeah,
quote
it's-
unquote, so.
Yeah.
Won't affect the overall budget.
good, thank you.
Yep.
so is there any other specific questions on the proposed budget for Trempealeau County?
Question about the deer donation. We still have, is it just the one location in Trempealeau County?
Yeah, Stacy, I just checked this morning, and the challenge still is getting more processors, so it's in Independence, or Maple Leaf Meats it's called now, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that's still a big, it's the same as last year, $100 non-CWD, 110 CWD, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to,
Motion to approve.
Second.
okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Other wildlife activity.
Unless you folks have questions, I'll get your signatures, Helen, but I'll answer any other wildlife-related questions you folks may have, since we've seen each other last time. So bear stuff's been pretty quiet in the county overall. I think there was one call that way. Other than that,
Been pretty quiet then.
yeah.
Seems I haven't kept up in a lot of places with this. Where are the deer numbers in the county or the area going up, down, holding?
You know, given the mild winter last year, David, they're up. And they're gonna, I mean, I can't remember that mild of winter ever. I mean, you know, and there may have been one, but I cannot
Yeah.
recall it. So everything, you know, everything came through the stuff really well and really healthy, so.
Good.
Well, then with that, are you seeing more crop damage from the deer?
In certain areas, yes. So Trempealeau County's been pretty static. It's about the same as last year, but I cover La Crosse County in the southeast portion of La Crosse County, Washington, Greenfield Township. The participation down there skyrocketed. It's went over, doubled in the last 2 years. So down there, it's really picked up. And then an area in Clark County that's never really been a problem except for the last 3, 4, 5 years, has blown up as far as number of folks calling with deer problems, so.
I've seen more on my cornfields this year than I have ever seen before.
Yeah, everybody came through real healthy, you know, virtually no winter kill.
They really take me off, because early on when the corn, I forget the leaf stage, was maybe 3 feet high.
Yep.
They were eating the whorl,
Yep,
Yep.
and dropping the leaf next to it wouldn't even eat that.
no, they
But they
bite and
pull it
pull
Right.
and chew, and then the rest falls down. That's the first sign. Yeah. So, anything else then? Otherwise, we'll get some signatures.
Any other questions for Dwayne? All right, thank you, sir. We will see you in November. Okay, next item we have on our agenda is a public hearing with which regards to amendments to our Trempealeau County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. And Randy, do you have a notice you read?
Yeah, I do.
I got pencil.
Please take notice that pursuant to State Statute 59.69, para 2, para E, Wisconsin statute, the Trempealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee will hold a public hearing to make minor amendments to the Trempealeau County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, which are as follows. Amendment to Chapter 3, Section 3.03, para 3. Please be further advised that this public hearing will be held on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, at 8:30 a.m. in the new county boardroom of the courthouse located at 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773. Prior to the public hearing, copies of the proposed minor amendments may be viewed or obtained at the offices of the Trempealeau County Department of Land Management and the Trempealeau County Clerk at 36245 Main Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773. To request that a copy of these amendments be mailed, please contact the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919 or email at mark.carlson@county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. The zoning ordinance amendments may also be accessed and viewed online at www.county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. Written comments will be accepted by the Environment and Land Use Committee until October 1st, 2024. at 4:30 PM. Comments can be emailed to Mark Carlson once again, or mailed to the Department of Land Management, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, but must be received no later than October 1st, 2024 at 4:30 PM. Trumbull County Environment and Land Use Committee.
Thank you, Randy. If anyone's here wishes to offer public comment, now is your time. Mark, do you have,
Yep, I guess, hopefully that, the change is in your packet, but basically removing everything that's in the ordinance that pertains to this and replacing it with the agreed-upon language that, Joe and our department has, agreed upon. And Joe is here if he's got any additional comments, and, we reached out to all the townships per the statute requirement and got, notification that they received the notice. I have not got any public input whatsoever on it. So I guess, just proposing the change. We've talked about this in prior months also, so
okay,
that's pretty much it, so, on that.
okay, thank you. Once again, if there's anyone who wishes to offer public comment, now is the time. I don't believe anyone is registered to testify. Do you have any letters from towns?
No, Verge just emailed them, per the statute requirement.
No
Every one of them
comments.
replied. They were supposed to reply within a 48 hour, and they all replied.
Okay.
And nobody, I don't think, made any comments other than they received it.
Okay.
That was their comments.
Okay, so we have no letters from the town. Last chance to public comment, but we are well beyond our posted time, so at this point, I will close public comment at 8:48 and entertain a motion from the committee for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minor amendments to Chapter 3 in the zoning ordinance.
Okay, motion made,
Second.
second by Klein. Discussion from the committee. We have talked about this at some pretty great length, but anything else we want to walk through?
How do we enforce this, or if it's a cash sale between two parties, when does it get recognized, and how would we correct it if there's not 100 feet of frontage?
I mean, there's nothing, there's no paper trail, so to speak, I guess. We just have to look at, I mean, maybe Joe can add a little bit to it, but, it's not like the last time when we made these changes to that density thing where there's actually something that's filled out. This is just something that a buyer, the language, I think, is putting the onus on the buyer and the seller and the railroad, instead of the county's responsibility. So that's kind of what my interpretation of it is anyways, but,
This not only pertains to the railroad. I mean, Board of Adjustment just had this issue last month. So have we set precedents by that acknowledgement?
what was the Board of Adjustment was for,
Frontage, which that's what this is, and they, by selling the parcel, the existing parcel now does not have 100 feet of frontage. Am I correct?
but this is talking about accepting only to road frontage between property of a former railroad or a current railroad and a river.
So it's just.
That's what this is.
Just that specific item?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did take note of that too, and one was like, because this kind of came up here with prior issue with another lot where, so I don't know if that's, something that, are we out of line with, I know it, and I believe it was explained that, those requirements were honed in after, lots of discussions and lots of, tightening up of things. And I'm, fine with them, but just a thought like Tony, said too.
To answer Tony's question about enforcement, if that lot were to be split by meets and bounds description, the real property lister's office would get a copy of that for mapping. when they get a copy of the mapping, the first thing they're going to see is it doesn't have frontage. So then they'll look to the ordinance or talk to the zoning department to determine why it doesn't have frontage. And obviously, the zoning department will review the ordinance and find out and basically be able to explain why it doesn't have ordinance. Well, at that time, there'll be an easement that'll have to be recorded for the split. And that'll be one of the, I guess you could call it check-off box that'll be used for confirmation. If that easement is recorded, then there won't be any violation issues. If it's not,
Which brings
then
me.
then it would follow through like any other violation.
Which brings, when you said if it's recorded, I thought some of our discussion had included the word, a recorded easement, rather, the word recorded is not included in this
Yeah,
wording.
that's for, oh. Doesn't say recorded?
Need-
The recorded easement requirement was in the previous version. It's not in this version because it basically is redundant. If it doesn't meet with this portion of the ordinance, it'll be a violation, it'll be flagged as such, and letters will be sent out to the parties, just like any other violation of a division without a CSM or a division without frontage or any other aspect of the ordinance. We could have put an easement requirement in there, but then we start opening up that can of worms of, well, how wide should that requirement be? Should we have easement standards? Should we dictate who has to maintain the easement? And in my opinion, we don't govern easements really in any other fashion in this ordinance. We rely that, we push that back on the two property owners whose responsibilities is between that agreement and the private document. We just require through this an easement that generally gets from the parcel in question to a public road. If they want to make it 66 feet, if they want to make it 100 feet, if they want to make it wide enough to maintain, in my opinion, it's really up to them through that private document, because then they can go into and delve into that private aspect of, well, who's going to maintain it, who's going to plow it, do you want it blacktopped, it can't be blacktopped, no manure can be hauled on it, and so on and so forth. Basically, it takes that easement problem, if you want to call it that, and puts it back to the two parties who have agreed to it, and doesn't incorporate the county as a third leg, so to speak, who has something to say.
Sure.
Our ordinance deals mainly with divisions of properties, which has certain aspects as far as frontage and stuff. And that's why the easement requirement is here, because I don't think the county wants to be involved in approving parcels that don't have, are basically landlocked. So I think this resolves or opens up the door for lands that are currently landlocked through no issue with or no fault of the owners. And it gives them an opportunity to divide that land. But it also requires access to the land. I don't think the county wants to be in the business of splitting or allowing parcels to be split that are landlocked. We've got enough of those as it is. This puts the onus back on the owners at question, dealing with the parties that have responsibilities for it.
It gives them an avenue to
It gives them an avenue.
change or whatever.
And I don't disagree with anything you've said. I think you're on track. The only thing that keeps going, bringing the bell back here is, if we don't require it to be recorded, where else does it, you said it's redundant, where else does it say it's required to be recorded?
It'll have to be recorded with the document. They'll have to prove it in order to get approval of that split.
So then it'll be filed with the Register of Deeds then, so it can follow
That will be a part of the approval. If somebody says, let's say we get a split, but there's no document recorded, and let's say the two owners come in and say, well, we do have an easement, it's a private document. We don't have proof you have an easement until it's recorded.
Right.
Until it's a part of the public record, until it can be conveyed with that property for a future owner. Because really, the issue isn't the two people who agree to this. It's the third party who comes in 10 years later and wants to buy one of those parcels.
And that's where I would go with this, to keep, I'll call it, keep pushing for the word recorded in this paragraph, so that the average person coming in says, oh, this has to be recorded, is it? That's,
There's nothing saying that Dave, that we couldn't put recorded easement in there.
Right.
This hasn't been approved yet.
Right, yeah, that's,
That's an amendment that we could make today.
yeah, yeah.
Is that something you recommend or not?
I think Dave's comment's appropriate. I think recorded easement, we could go even further and say recorded with the Register of Deeds office. Because when you start down that trail of words, pretty soon you end up with, instead of a couple words, you end up with a bag of words. But I think generally speaking, I guess to make it even more appropriate, you could put recorded in the definition of the terms, but then you folks would have to have a public hearing on Chapter 18, which says we've revised definition of terms for recorded to mean recorded in the Register of Deeds office. There's certain aspects of virtually every ordinance, be it zoning, subdivision, whatever, where there's a small amount of presumed requirement. And in this case, in order to prove to the committee and to the zoning department that you have an easement, there's only one way to do that, and that's to record it in the courthouse between a grantor and a grantee. If it's not recorded, you don't have an easement, because somebody could wad that up and throw it away tomorrow.
Right.
Exactly, and that's why I go back to this, if you say recorded, yes, we're assuming the Register of Deeds, but I'm thinking of the average person looking at this and said, what do I have to do? Without the word recorded in there, it's, oh, well, we can get together and write this piece of paper up and we're covered.
They might.
Where if you put the word recorded in there, you've made them aware, reading a small part of the document, that they have to do something. That,
I'm confident that the committee could approve it with that change.
So does somebody have a proposed language change? I think we're looking at basically the last sentence, more or less.
yeah,
It does say in 2, lot of record required. So, I mean, record is required
right.
is right above it, just as a reference.
But that's on the lot, that's not talking about the.
Well, you don't have a lot
easement.
unless you have an easement, and that has to then be recorded with that deed.
Easement, right, right. So I guess after this discussion, I'll make the motion that between the last word on line 4 and the first word of line, oh, wait a minute, yeah, not line 4, coming up backwards. No, I'll go back to first. I'll count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the last word of line 5 and the first word of line 6, that the word recorded be inserted.
Recorded easement?
So where in the ordinance, why don't you say where it's at instead of what?
Yeah, I am not following.
I would suggest
It's,
include a recorded.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That the word recorded be inserted. And becomes an A. Yeah. And recorded.
And we can do that without having to do all this all over again? We
Right.
can add that?
Yep. I think so.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
That was my understanding, that we could amend this prior to passage here with a
Well, it's
minor
for
amendment.
discussion because, yeah, it would make sense because we've posted it.
Right.
Nobody's here. I think we're within reason on that
Right.
one.
I'll ask.
Susan will tell us if we're wrong, I'm sure.
Yeah, she'll catch that.
So,
A month or two ago on a similar issue, she made the statement that minor adjustments could be made at this meeting and at this.
yeah, I
She
think,
did review this document also.
Sure.
She was fine with the way it was written.
okay. Well, we have an amendment offered. We'll vote on the amendment first. Oh, do we have a second on that? Okay, second by Klein. All in favor of approving the amended language, say aye.
Aye.
Against, same sign. Okay, motion carried, so we'll add that. Any other discussion on
I have a
the
question.
whole thing?
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
maybe going back, but can you just go back over the rationale for the 100 feet? Is that mainly so you could have an easement and still have Or I guess, yeah, how did the county arrive at 100 feet?
How did the county arrive at 100 feet frontage? Basically, it was decided at the committee at that time. Initially, back in 1970, it was 60 feet. And apparently, they were looking at things like width versus ratio, or width versus length ratios. Some counties have ratios like 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1, 4 to 1. In other words, the parcel can't be any more than like 4 times the length of the width. And I think that the 100 feet may have played into that a little bit. If you have a 60-foot frontage and you have a 4 to 1 ratio, well, that makes a pretty small lot. In fact, it wouldn't even meet the minimum requirements of the ordinance. And I think the 100 feet may have come around driveway spacing, for one. It may have been associated with that minimum parcel size. If you take 100 feet and 4 to 1, that's 100 feet and 400 feet. That doesn't even quite meet the minimum parcel size, which is an acre. So I think the 100 feet initially came about under the guise of designing a more usable lot. Driveways that aren't posted every 60 feet going out to the road. Be honest with you, I don't know if every 100 feet's a whole lot better. But I think that was, I'm speculating here, but I suspect that was probably agreed upon with, from a committee, your predecessors, who all had different ideas of what looked good to them. There have been some maybe that wanted 20, maybe some wanted 500, I don't know. But the 100 feet ended up being a standard that seemed to be feasible and livable. Does everybody like it? No. But it seems to work. It's worked for the last 25 years. Kind of.
Good question, too.
And we do have a 4 to 1 ratio in our.
Feet to 100, close to your acre. So, close to 4 to 1.
Yeah. And we obviously can't design requirements in ordinance and violate our own ordinance. So we have to kind of be cognizant of that a little bit.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other discussion on the motion that is in front of us, which would be to approve it with the amendment?
Do you need a motion, or you have?
We have one.
I thought you had the motion.
Yeah, we're good there. Just wondering if there's any other discussion before I call the vote. Hearing none. All in favor of approving the amended language that has been presented to us, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will get that recorded. And I'll move on to county board then, I believe, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, next item on our agenda is a zoning update.
Well, not too much news going on. I guess a few years back, we approved there's a company just outside of Arcadia city limits that grinds up boards and stuff for sawdust. And there's an individual that lives near that that's constantly complaining about dust and all this other stuff, And I've, investigated it, and I'm not gonna camp out there all day to see what's going in and out of there, but there is some dust from the vehicles driving in and out of there. That was one of the stipulations of a condition. It says if they don't follow it, we could bring it back and discuss it more at length with the committee. I've reached out to the company, pretty much to no avail and no response from them. But I guess just, doing the diligence for the person that's concerned about it. I don't know if we want to bring it back to bring both parties in here and make it clear that they need to do something with dust control, or we could revoke their conditional use permit. I've kind of told them that in a letter form at one time, and so I just wanted to act on that owner's behalf that's making the complaints. And he did send some pictures. I was on vacation last week, and he sent me some. That does show it, dust coming from a vehicle, and it's road dust. It's not dust from the lumber itself, it's road dust. And I drove in at the town hall, town shop right there And I drove in, a couple, 3 weeks ago, and there was dust flying everywhere from my pickup driving in and out of there. But they could treat the road with something to make the dust less visible. I don't know if the actual goes over to their property, but he sees it, So I don't know how we really want to handle that. I mean, we could put it on the agenda and have the parties known and bring it all back for discussion, but it was one of the conditions, and it was mentioned that they would have to come back and talk if necessary.
When was the last time you had, or when did you send a letter to them? Recently or sometime?
I
ago?
would say within the last couple months. I mean, I do have a paper trail of more than one letter. First there was complaint about some of the boards falling off the trucks. I said, well, there's nothing we're gonna do about that. Call the sheriff's department or something.
Right, that's what we.
And then they talked about, well, maybe they shouldn't even be doing this, as far as accessing by the highway. Well, that's a DOT thing, Our conditions was dust control and actually hours of operation. Haven't really heard any complaints about the hours of operation. It's been the road dust from the road itself. And there's only been one individual complaining, hasn't been like 10 of them. There's one individual that's pretty adamant that something needs to be done, but I'm not really sure what,
So the condition was for the road, not just air dust out of the grinding process?
Well, they
It was
have
for
like,
both?
it was mostly addressed from roads, that was kind of discussed. They were talking about making them blacktop it or put calcium chloride down. It was never a requirement that they had to, one of the conditions was if dust becomes a problem, it would be brought back to our committee. And, but I mean, like I said, the company has been notified and they just haven't responded, and it'd just go a long ways if they were just better neighbors and just did something about it, but, or maybe the individual that's, obsessed with, sometimes some people just can't be pleased no matter what, I guess, but we gotta kinda act on their behalf.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember the owner did come into a meeting, I don't know, remember how many years ago, remember, and we did talk about all of that.
Yeah.
And I know there was discussion about enclosing more of the building.
Well, I mean, I've seen, their buildings are somewhat, I would say their buildings are completely enclosed.
Okay, I didn't
The
know if
problem
they-
would be, all the dust, from my understanding, is complaint about the road dust, not airborne sawdust flying around, because they are in that old, like an old compost,
Yeah, compost.
animal shelter, and it's completely enclosed.
Okay. Then there, also too, I remember them talking about, like, changing their grinder, or they had something going on.
They were
with-
talking about, a diesel grinder versus
Yeah.
electrical grinder.
But they don't.
And
talk-
I've never really heard any concerns, like, if we start making them put in, like, say the dust was a problem with the sawdust, and they had to put in some type of filtering system, that would make more noise, and then people would
Yeah,
complain about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So that's just something that hasn't
Yeah.
been brought up as far as noise, and it was mostly road dust is what the complaint is. And so, I mean, we could I could kind of reach out to the company again and say, we're gonna bring this back if you don't get your act together.
I think it's,
And,
If it is a concern.
right.
I mean, it's just.
It's right near the residential is what the deal is. It blows over. I drive by it constantly and it's a puff cloud that comes up when the trucks come in.
Yeah.
And the trucks come out and it floats over to the residentials
Yeah.
that are right there along the side. So I understand where it's coming from, but there's not any other place in this county that doesn't have the road dust coming up.
Right, I mean,
You know,
he's just
if
being adamant about
it's-
making
it's
his
road
point.
dust.
And, I'm just reaching out on his behalf, I guess.
Right.
Like it or not, we have to,
Address it.
right, and I guess at the time, I guess in the future, when things like this come up in proximity to those areas, maybe they shouldn't be put there, but I'm sure when Bill Smith was bringing corn or whatever in from the fields, he's driving in and out of there, just
He
the
had the
same
same
amount
road
of dust.
dust.
I'm sure
He's
there-
And it
probably
was late
making
at
more
night.
trips.
Yeah.
So, I just told him I'd bring it up, and we can, snow will be flying here soon, maybe the dust will go away, but I guess it's always gonna be an issue, but,
I'm just saying it's very normal, Mark.
I know it is.
As somebody who drives by it daily. It's, you know, it's nothing extreme in as far as when you're there.
Right.
But it is, you know, it's the same as when I drive up, you know, Pompey Lane, which is pure gravel. But nobody lives next to me, so nobody complains.
That's about it. I mean,
Problem is, though, is the conditional use that we put on it.
right.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
where it
that's
comes
why
back to
I
us.
said, you know, we can discuss it further and then make it a requirement to, I mean, it already was kind of a requirement not to have dust, you know. They
Right.
talked about blacktopping the whole thing would be pretty substantial, but if they spread, I don't think they'd want to water it down, because then they'd be tracking mud out onto the road. So I mean, I think if they treated it with the chloride or whatever, just do that. I don't know how often they gotta do it, but if they just did that, I mean, it would alleviate a lot of problems, you know, but it's kind of a never-ending thing, but some people get hung up on it and they send me pictures like, look at this, you know, well, if you look at it real close, it's the same picture of the truck here, over here, and there's, it makes it look like it's 20 times that they drove through there, but it's actually the one trip that they went through there.
They could use recycled blacktop. There's a lot of different cheaper ways
Yeah.
of doing it, so,
Granite.
yeah.
And I guess we can kind of leave it as it is right now, and I can tell the company that, you know, we might bring this back, and I guess, you know, they
Yeah,
could get their
if you want to
conditional use.
prevent having to come in, deal with it, so we don't have to.
Because they don't want it revoked. I mean, that wouldn't be in
No,
anybody's
that's-
best interest.
they're busy as heck
Not ours or
there.
not theirs. I just told the landowner in question that we would bring it up, and he seems to be okay with that at this point, and unless they did something to prevent every little speck of dust from flying, I think it would always be some kind of issue going on there.
It's good that you're listening to it, Mark.
Yeah, we have to, I mean.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I guess as far as any other thing zoning related, you know, as far as I know, we don't have any hearings coming up for anything, as far as rezones or conditional uses or just yesterday, people were, for some reason, well, Monday must have been the day for everybody to turn some permits in because it was crazy. People are still turning in permits. I don't know how they're gonna get anything built by the time they need to get it built, but they're still bringing them in.
Don't have to worry about getting rained on.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Good deal, thank you. Haley with conservation update.
Mine's pretty quick too.
Okay.
So tree and shrub sale will go live October 28th. I'm doing it the Monday before, like the 1st, at 9 a.m. It'll be online again, same format as last year. So I'll be posting about that, sending emails and everything, but just wanted to get that word out there. Got a variety of trees again, so that's exciting. So we're getting the website updated. Projects are, you know, finishing up here for the year, getting completed. We're getting stuff ready for next year, so we are starting to do surveys and design work, figuring out what projects we can and can't do next year as far as funding sources. Our trout stream event that we had in, what was that, August, that turned out really well, and we are getting a lot of phone calls from the event and from the mailing that we sent, so doing a lot of follow-up on that, walking a lot of streams. So it was a good, you know, it was a positive turnaround from that event and, you know, sending out the information. So I've been doing a lot of site visits with Trout Unlimited to kind of see what is out there as far as potential projects coming up and increasing our, you know, easements. And it might be something that I'm going to start talking about, maybe the county holding some of those easements instead of just the rod and gun clubs, because you never know how long the rod and gun clubs are going to be around. I mean, I would love for them to continuously, you know, stay, but you never know. The county has a little bit more, you know, length to it. So I'll probably start making some discussions on the county holding trout stream easements. So I know other counties do that, like Monroe and Buffalo and everything, and I think La Crosse and Vernon, a whole bunch of them. So we could have some really great discussions with those counties as well, as far as like how they go about that. And then middle of October here, I will be attending the county con meeting. And that'll have some really great discussions. I know the agenda is very full, so I'm really excited about that. So I'll probably have some really good topics to bring back to the staff and potentially some to bring to the committee in the coming months here. So otherwise, we are staying busy with getting things rolling and just planning for next year. So that's what I have.
Okay. Questions for Haley?
The July sign up for cover crops, did that work better than word of mouth in the fall?
Yeah, so it worked really well. We used all of our allowed SEG funds for the cover crops, and we actually used about the same in county cost share. So it did turn out very well. I think grand total estimated, approximately is over $30,000 on cover crops this year. So it turned out really well this year.
Good. Very good. Any other questions for Haley?
Kind of. I was at a highway district meeting yesterday, and we had a presentation from the DNR in regard to culverts. And the suggestion kind of being that the highway department probably work more with land use on some of these culverts. Are you seeing, or are you aware of anything like that as a discussion item?
I haven't had
This guy
discussions.
came from the Northwoods, so.
Yeah, so I think that's probably stemming from the fish passage allowance
Yeah.
for the culverts.
Right, yeah.
And I know that Trout Unlimited did do a culvert inventory in the driftless area to see if there was connectivity between,
His map
you know,
didn't show
the
Trempealeau County
streams.
that I saw, but it did show Buffalo County with this survey from Trout. Did they do it in Trempealeau County too?
Yes, I haven't seen the final results because they were still working on it this year as well. So they're still, I think, continuing and finishing that up. I don't know how connective our culverts are. I know I've seen some that are, there's a drop with the water and there's no way that fish are passing through there. So I haven't had official discussions with the highway commissioner, but it's definitely something I could look into.
I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item is future agenda items. Is there anything someone would like to see added to a future agenda?
I don't think that, but just one other item before we go on to that.
Sure.
I don't know if anybody else at the Counties Association attended the breakout seminar in regard to townships leaving county zoning. That, that law passed this spring that could happen.
Right, but that's only at renewal time of the county.
No.
State
Not according to this meeting.
Montana, they bowed out of the zoning from Buffalo County.
Oh, yeah, but, well, that was earlier.
Yeah, that
They
was
went out
before
with,
the
because
change.
they opened up the whole rezoning in Buffalo County, and then they adopted it.
That's when you can do it.
No, this is now a new law that allows an individual town. Prior to this, you could only have every township in the county say, we don't want county zoning. That was the only way out, which basically is opening up for the same thing. This now is a law, allows a town to petition out, but it's not nearly as simple as it sounded. First of all, it's a 5-year process. Second of all, there's still certain state things that the county will still control, like sanitary. The county will still control that. There's certain, I don't have information with me on it, but it was an interesting session that kind of gave you, oh, well, okay.
I know there's towns in Chippewa County that are doing it, but whether they're more unincorporated towns,
Yeah. So,
But-
but anyway, I was just bringing it up for a heads up that this law isn't as simple as it sounded when it was first passed through the news media. It sounded
Yeah,
like,
been seeing a lot of that where it is a 5-year thing.
right. And it's,
We would still have to approve what they're gonna propose to
right,
do.
that's the final thing.
So, I
The
mean,
county
it's
has
kind
to
of
approve
a
it in the end anyway, yeah.
process. It's
So-
not as easy as you want out and then tomorrow you're out.
The takeaway from it was supposedly designed to spur conversation on, get together and negotiate something between the town and the county rather than say we're done. That was kind of the inspiration for the law, the takeaway I had from that meeting. That's
Interesting. Okay, anything future agenda item?
This is that, the resolution I passed through, make sure I get that at the end of the day here before we.
Got it?
And I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing of future agenda item may be that, milling thing, you know, bring that back as a conditional use review, or I don't necessarily wanna have another meeting on it, I'd rather have it resolved, but we've tried all the avenues we can, I guess.
Yeah.
And the only thing we could do is threaten to take away their conditional use, and then their business would be shut down until.
They fix it.
That, but I guess, you know.
It's not a,
With that said, brings a question to me. If we decide that that's something we're gonna do, is that something we have a meeting today and say, you're done tomorrow, or is there a whole process?
I think, you know, conditional use was granted by our committee, you know, and one of the conditions was it could be reviewed, you know, and it could be revoked, you know, and that would be at the spot revoked.
What's that?
That's livestock then.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I realize what it is, yeah, but I mean, I was just looking at procedure. I mean, is it, we say we want to revoke it, and now we have to give them 6 months or?
I think it's revoked. Well, I can coordinate something with Susan on it.
I'm just.
I think it's, once it's revoked,
It's
it
done.
can be right
It's
there.
done. Okay, okay.
yeah, I think it, well, I think you can do whichever you want with it. I don't think it's that long of a driveway, if it's what I'm thinking. Or is it the whole thing that is
Well,
generating dust?
they drive, you know, it is blacktop to a certain point, then it turns to gravel. And then, like, say you're driving past this old barn where the milk house was, and then
That's
that other
gravel.
building, that's the,
In the back.
It's gotta get to the back.
yeah, I mean,
So
it's, the building.
it is when you go around and all
Yeah, I
that.
mean, the building is, you know, hundreds of feet long, you know.
Oh, yeah, it's a big area.
big.
That's why I was asking, like, the driveway itself from front of property to when
Right.
you get into the yard isn't that far.
Yeah, they're talking about the driveway that kind of goes from, say, the entrance back to the
Right.
building they're bringing the stuff into. Because they bring it into the backside of this building. And, the pictures you had last showed dust, you know, and it wasn't like a dust bowl dust, but it was dust. It was noticeable.
Is it, yeah, I don't know. Okay, I don't know what to say.
Even when we're hauling stuff in my own yard.
I think they got rezoned to industrial, and then they
Oh,
got a
ours too. We
conditional
just-
use. That's what it was, yeah. They got rezoned to industrial, and then they got a conditional use permit. And, right. Because when they first started doing it, before they had the building totally enclosed, when the dust was flying from the actual sawdust, I was in his backyard, and you could barely breathe, it was so bad. At least they got that. At least they got that alleviated, because I was talking to one of the guys in his backyard, and it was just, it was bad, you know, because they started doing something before the building got totally enclosed. But that was just a very minor time, you know.
So at the time of this conditional use, out of curiosity, what, were there residents that came and said, that's what we want on the conditional use, or did we?
That was their biggest concerns, you know, they never wanted it there in the first place, just like anything else, you know,
Right.
but it did get approved. They came in and gave their, you know, 2 cents on it all, and the committee weighed the pros and cons, and they. let it
We
go
added
through.
that to it, and it was done.
Yeah, the dust was, yeah, based on committee, or based on a lot of the public input. it was
Okay.
Dust. And then the hours, they didn't want them working 24/7.
Right. But if
And
you
that
got-
has never really been, even though there was a little bit of a grumbling that they started too early one day, it hasn't been a habit.
No.
Okay. So it's something the committee wishes to revisit. Or let Mark handle it for the time being. I don't know. Okay.
How long has that been in place? It has dust been,
I can't remember exactly when it was approved. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the, it's been years, but I mean, the dust has been, pretty much a complaint since day one, but it's always been the same individual. Unless he's speaking, maybe he's speaking on all the neighbors' behalf, but it's always been the same individual.
Sure. Well, I think before we'd want to move, before we'd want to move
I'll
forward
reach out
on.
more to him and say,
So I think you
and I,
want to
like I
check
said,
with
I've
other
threatened
neighbors.
them. You know, that's like another thing with zoning and townships, you know. You know, I know they get frustrated with how we do things sometimes, but it is a process. You know, you send a letter and you threaten them with throwing the book at them, and they don't listen. Well, then you cite them. Now that we have a corp counsel that's a lot more supportive on sticking to, you know, with these citations. You know, I know the towns get frustrated because they want answers and they want corrections like right now. Well, it doesn't work that
Not how
way.
it works,
you
yeah.
know, And that's kind of like this one here, you know, there's always something.
Yep, okay. Well, keep working on it, I think, at this point.
That's fine.
Yep. Anything else from the committee? Do we have solar language that we were looking to approve to our ordinance? Didn't we have some, I know we'd talked through some, spent a fair amount of time on it. Is that already through?
Oh, the solar?
Yeah, our recommendations?
I think we approved the recommendations that we would use. Right. And now that you bring that up, I did get a call from an individual in the southern part of the county. They want to know, what are you gonna do about that? Well, I said, we're pretty limited on what we can do about it, and I gave them a copy of the study report that was done, and then also the recommendations. I said, this is what we're gonna use for guidance. They seem to be okay with that at this point. So.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on future? Otherwise, next, next meeting date is Wednesday, November 6th, assuming that still was good with staff and committee. We will stick with our 8:30 start. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.